Hi, everyone, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan, and I started this podcast to inspire women to go after their dreams. And the reason why I started this podcast is because there was a point in time in my life where I was feeling no joy, I was feeling no whimsy, I was feeling like I had no actual purpose in life, and I was just kind of going through the motions. And I started this podcast as a way to almost kind of inspire myself to get out and go and do more things and try new things and try to be the person and build the life that I wanted. And honestly, as I have been doing it, the world has only continued to change. I've been doing this podcast for only 2 years now. And unfortunately, the world has only gotten worse. But what I have noticed is internally, I am still feeling that sparkle. I am still feeling that joy. I'm still feeling that whimsy. But I have also been battling this with this almost guilt and anger and sadness and resentment. And I go back to that place where I was at the beginning before I started this, where I don't want to feel those feelings. Anger, sadness, and resentment, those are all common things to be feeling, and those are completely normal emotions. But for me, when I have those feelings, it brings back a part of myself that I'm not necessarily trying to associate myself with anymore. And so I kind of wanted to talk about why we still need to have this sense of joy, why we need to have this sense of whimsy in our lives, and how we can balance this discourse that's happening inside ourselves with wanting to find joy, wanting to experience joy, wanting to also hit our goals, while also the world is ending and I'm angry and I'm sad and I just do not know what to do with myself. And so we're going to talk about that, and I hope you enjoy it. So to start, creating whimsy and joy is point blank period how you keep these scaries and the depressies away. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it and tell you that it's dopamine and serotonin, at least not yet. Because honestly, you probably don't care about that. You care about how can I wake up and not be so sad and depressed about the state of everything and feel all this anger and resentment towards the people in power. Well, continue to have the anger and resentment towards a lot of the people in power, but you have to start bringing a little sparkle back into your life. And you have to do this knowing that you can feel two things at once, three things. You can hold as many emotions. Like, honestly, go back and watch the Inside Out movie if you need to, especially the second one. So you can kind of see that it is okay and it is possible to hold multiple emotions at once. So you can feel the joy for the whimsy that you're experiencing and sadness for those that may not be able to have access to food, safety, health, whatever. And I know that sounds selfish. I think that's what a lot of us say is like, oh, that sounds selfish of me to be feeling joy when there's all these other things happening in the world. But you have to be able to have some hope, some joy in order to continue to fight for those that have bare bones or nothing right now. So set aside the guilt. Your guilt does not help anything right now. So set it aside and listen up, because I'm going to give you a few ways to start small and creating those routines around joy. And I want you to start thinking of joy as a form of, honestly, as a form of exercise. But for your heart, that's the cheesiest thing I think I've ever said. But it is true, because in order for joy to become a priority for you, you have to make it a priority. There is always going to be something else for you to do. There's always going to be something to be more productive. Get the dishes done, get in a workout, walk the dogs, fold the laundry, apply that to the job, whatever. But let's quickly, just a quick moment. When was the last time that you experienced joy for 30 minutes? I want you to stop everything you're doing. I want you to stop folding your laundry. I want you to stop doing the dishes. And I want you to just close your eyes for a second. 30 minutes, when was the last time you just experienced mindless, joyful fun? And then when you experienced that, how did you feel afterwards? And the reason why I want you to think about it for a second is because if you had to think about it for too long, if you had to think, oh, I don't know, last week, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, that's far too long, bruh. That's far too long. And now here is where a little science is actually going to come into play. And this is why you need to start experiencing at least 30 minutes of joy most days. So joy is driven by four main brain chemicals. The first is dopamine, which allows you to experience pleasure. The second is serotonin, which helps your mood regulate. The third is oxytocin, and the fourth is stress relief. But when you experience real joy, your body is flooded with mood regulation, pleasure, love, and stress relief. Now, why would you prioritize that over doing the laundry? Is it because you think it makes you a better person? It doesn't. Your laundry will get done, but you can give yourself 30 minutes to do a puzzle, read a book, go on a walk. You can do those things. The discourse that happens inside of us, especially I think as women, is that we need to constantly be doing something that's good for society or good for our households. And that is how we become the most exhausted sex, because we are putting on our backs all of the other things that other people could be taking care of. And we're assuming that we need to be the ones that do that. And we do this because we grew up watching our moms do it, watching our aunties, watching our other friends. We did it. We understand that other women in our lives have been doing this time and time again, and we look at them as inspiration. But I want you to look at other people that are experiencing joy. I want you to look at the women that are prioritizing themselves over getting their laundry done, over having the aesthetic looking house, or whatever it might be that's getting in your way. Because the women that are getting dopamine, getting serotonin, getting oxytocin, they're living more fulfilling lives. And here's the other part of this that I think a lot of people don't realize when it comes to joy. When you experience moments of joy throughout your day, you are actually helping your cognitive function a lot more than you believe. Joy creates a cognitive boost. When your brain is actively engaged in a task that is flooding you with those happy cocktails, you are able to absorb, retain, and apply new information at a much faster rate than if you weren't doing those things, than those that are not experiencing joy. And so think of it this way. Let's say you're at work and you have been locked in on a spreadsheet for 4 hours. You keep hitting wall after wall after wall. When you get up and you walk away, maybe you'll go get yourself a coffee. Maybe you go on an actual walk. Maybe you go and laugh with a coworker for a couple minutes, and then you come back. You're able to focus more because you have basically given your brain a chance to go from this stress tight muscle to a more relaxed and fluid thing. And you're able to process better information, you're able to retain it, and you're able to focus better. Because your brain cannot withstand over time being constant. Your brain is basically a muscle. When you overwork a muscle, what happens? You get injured. And instead of our injuries being like we pulled a brain muscle or whatever, we get headaches, we get migraines, we can't retain information, we can't process, we get overstimulated, and we shut down. That's what happens to our brains. And so we have to give our brain that moment of joy, that moment of serotonin, so that it can continue to process and do what it needs to do. So how are we cultivating joy in this in this busy and chaotic world without also creating burden? Well, two shifts have to happen. The first is you have to make it a priority. You have to make joy as much of a priority as you would grocery shopping. And yes, it is genuinely that serious. And I'll get into why in just a second. And the second is you have to let go of the idea that your hobbies or the things that you do for fun need to be cool and impressive. So to go back to that first shift, joy has to be a top 3 priority for you. And here is my logic behind why. It goes back to that cognitive boost. Like I mentioned with the spreadsheet, when you are working on a project and you're getting frustrated and you're hitting wall after wall, but then you go on a walk, that movement is giving you joy. It's giving you time away from the hard thing and allowing you to touch some grass, allowing you to feel the air on your face and move your body. And those are the things that are going to bring you joy. Especially to my corporate girlies, you are not just a corporate girly. You work there for 8 hours. When you leave there, go experience some joy. And honestly, start utilizing your breaks more to experience joy. Don't just doom scroll. Get up and move your body around, because that is how you are going to A, get through the day. B, also, you're not going to have that drop off at 2 p.m. And you know what drop off I'm talking about. You're not going to have that moment where your brain goes, I can't do this anymore. Because guess what? You have been going too hard from 8 a.m. till 1, and now your brain is depleted. You have to create moments in your life that are allowing you to have moments for joy. Maybe that is going and getting a coffee. Maybe that is going and talking to a coworker. Maybe that's calling a friend and saying hi and just giggling for a little bit about nothing. Whatever it is, when you come back to that hard project or task, you are going to have better cognitive function than you were earlier. You're going to have a better mood and you're going to have less stress. So yes, Joy is that serious. It is that simple. And this applies to people not just working on corporate things. This also applies to when you are having a stressful time in your life. Let's say you're fighting with your partner. Sometimes separating and you going on a walk and they going on a walk, or just going and sitting in a room and both of you working on your own hobbies for a second, you can come back and I promise both of you will be in a much more regulated state, and both of you will be able to have a conversation that allows you to continue your partnership and allows you to understand each other's side of things. I think a lot of times couples get into such discourse, healthy couples get into such discourse because they're tired, they're overworked, and they're overburdened, and they're not creating enough joy, not just as a couple together, but also separately in their own lives. Once you start prioritizing it, then you can start to cultivate it and curate more joy. The other part of this shift that has to happen is that the notion that your hobbies or your hobbies outside of work interest have to be these cool or inspiring things. They do not. Do you want to know what brings me joy? Going on a walk with my dogs in my neighborhood, writing, reading, painting in my watercolor book, badly, but doing a puzzle or playing pickleball. You know what none of those things are innately? Cool. They are kind of dorky, actually. I'm a nerdy girl. I'm a nerdy, introverted girl that goes and plays pickleball, and she does it kind of okay. But who cares? Not me. Because guess what? Those are the things that bring me joy. When you are comparing the things that you find joyful to someone else's joy, you are taking away your own. Comparison is a trap and does not give you any information that is helpful other than maybe I want to try that thing that they're doing. So let's talk about how to actually start building these joyful moments into your day. I've kind of mentioned a couple ways of doing it, but I'm going to give you 3 actionable steps that you can start implementing today, right now, this very second. The first is I want you to identify 3 things that bring you joy that take less than 15 minutes. I want you to write them down somewhere that you can see daily. Maybe it's your phone notes or a sticky note on your mirror, in your planner, whatever. These are your go-to joy activities when you need a quick reset. For me, that's playing with my dogs. It's watching silly TikTok compilations, or it's making myself a really good cup of coffee with all the fancy things. Second is schedule joy like you would a doctor's appointment. I know that sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. If you don't put it on your calendar, it won't happen. Block out 30 minutes twice a week minimum for something that brings you joy. Protect that time like you would protect a meeting with your boss or a dentist appointment. Because here's the thing, you wouldn't skip those, so why are you skipping time with yourself? In a world of shit, you have to see the bright spots. Set aside this idea that you need to be solving the world's problems because you cannot do that if you are flooding your system with stress. If you are flooding your system with guilt. I know it can feel like you need permission to feel some joy right now. Cat hair all over me. Every day is breaking news. And if you are on the side of the politics of me, then you feel embarrassed to be an American. You feel guilty for the actions of the orange dictator. And you too also don't understand how he's still in power. But don't let them take your joy. That is still a form of resistance. To laugh with your friends, to experience a new cultural dish, to learn how to salsa or do ballet or even dance hip hop. I don't care. Experiencing joy can be in so many forms, just like going on a walk to learning a new dance at a dance routine at a studio. But make time for it. We can be upset about the state of things and still find joy in the small moments. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that wherever you are in the world that you can find just a few minutes of joy, whether that's just playing with your dogs or watching the sunset, enjoying a beautifully crafted latte at home, or signing up for that dance class that you've always wanted to. I don't care. I just want you to be able to say at the end of the day, I had at least one moment of joy. Which reminds me, this past week, my moment of joy was settling on a cover that I crafted for my novel. Yes, I get to say my novel. I'm so excited about it. So there's a second moment of joy that you just got to witness. But wherever you are today, keep taking up space. Fight for your joy. Kiss.